Good day, everyone. My name is Georgette Marie F. Pehuna, and I'm going to present about understanding the foundations of leadership. That is under part one of the nature and notion of leadership. So we have here the following subtopics, which are leadership models, leadership trait theory, leadership behavior theory, contingency, and situational leadership theory. So first, let us have the leadership models and theories. There is a considerable debate that exists in the scientific community about the definitions of model or theory. There are also numerous theories and versions of theories on leadership that exists. However, the general conclusion of leadership is that leadership principles are timeless, while the models that examine those principles may always change. So, regardless, it is useful to review some of the key theories in order to gain a clearer perspective on what constitutes leadership. Some, but certainly not all, will be discussed in this chapter. So, these are the three theory: behavior theory, contingency, or situational theory. First, let us have the trait theory. One of the early approaches to understanding leadership was the identification of specific traits. In psychology, a trait is a stable characteristic that potentially lasts throughout one's entire life. The focus on traits is found in the early research into leadership, which can be characterized as a search for the great man. Personal characteristics of exemplary leaders were emphasized in this research, and the implicit idea was that leaders are born rather than made. One also is that people with the right traits would become the best leaders. So, how do you identify the common traits of good leaders? That was one of the many questions surrounding the study of leadership. Questions that led or may lead to further researches. For one thing, it was found that coming up with an exact list set of leadership traits is difficult because the first is culture. What works in one part of the world does not necessarily work in other parts. So, for example, a trait that works in Germany will be less successful or can be less successful in America. Or a trait that works in Manhattan may fall flat in Nebraska. Second is we have the context. Whatever trait is appropriate depends on the context in which one finds oneself. For example, taking a leadership role with a group of people you hardly know versus taking the role within an established organization already. Having it said that an exact list is impossible to come up with does not mean that leadership traits are not important in leadership development. Actually, the overall evidence suggested that persons who are leaders in one situation may not necessarily be leaders in other situations also. So, despite the question surrounding the validity of leadership tree theory, it is reasonable to assume that certain personality traits are associated with leadership. Research over the past years reveals that effective leaders tend to share the following traits. First is intelligence. They have the ability to integrate and interpret the information. Second is have Second is they have the creativity. They are innovative and original in their thinking. Next is self-confidence. They trust in themselves and confidence in their abilities. Next is drive. So they have a high level of energy, initiative, and tenaciousness. They are also task relevant knowledge. So they are in knowledge or they know their businesses well and what it takes to make it successful. They are also credible or also have the credibility. They are honest, trustworthy, predictable, and dependable. Next is motivation. Enjoy influencing others to achieve shared goals. And they should also be flexible. Adapt to fit the needs of followers and demands of situations. A well known Chinese proverb says that the wise adapt themselves to circumstances as water molds itself to the picture. So, the bottom line here is that trait-based theory, by implication, is the best leaders are born to lead, and the effective leadership and potential leaders are determined by a largely pre-designed and unchanging set of character traits. From a training and development standpoint, if a person does not possess the right leadership traits, then he or she will not be able to lead effectively or certainly will not lead as well as a natural born leader. We also have training and development can foster leadership ability to a degree, but what really matters in this concept is possessing the appropriate traits or personality profile. The ideas and implications of trait-based leadership theory dominated leadership think dominated leadership thinking until the mid 20th century. So this thinking began to change as questions arose about the impact of the particular situation or the followers' attitudes on the leader's behavior. It became apparent that a person doesn't become an effective leader just because he or she has the certain traits. So here we have the figure one of the leadership theory transitions. These are the struggles to explain leadership by David Colzo. Definitions of leadership are influenced by the times in which we live. In 1920s, we have the tree theory, which is also called as the great man theory, which leaders are based on common traits and characteristics. In 1940s, we have the behavior theory, which was examined also by the Ohio and Michigan studies that says that leaders are task oriented and relationship oriented. And we also have the contingency theory today, which have uh, varieties of leadership styles. Next one is leadership behavior theory. Researchers define behaviors as observable actions, which makes measuring them more scientifically valid than trying to measure a human personality trait. It also says that it also assumes that you can learn to become a good leader because you are not drawing on personality traits. Your actions or what you do define your leadership ability. I actually have here the five kinds of leadership behavior from the Blake and Mountain managerial grid. So we have here the high concern for people and low concern for people, low concern for task, and high concern for task. We'll know more about it. So for the country club style, it has high concern for people and then low concern for task. So people feel good and happy, but what they are supposed to do lacks priority. So usually the emphasis of the leader is to cultivate a high level of friendly relationships with the led groups. So, although leaderships like this appear to care about their people and want to create a comfortable and friendly environment, this style is often not good for creating or producing results. People feel good and happy, but what they are supposed to do lacks priority. Ironically, the group suffers ultimately because they fail to achieve this style is common among leaders who are afraid of upsetting people and or who fear rejection and being disliked. Next is we have the impoverished style that has low concern for people and then low concern for task also. These are the leaders who care mainly about themselves and are afraid of making mistakes. We also have the middle of the road style that has the middle concern for people and then middle concern for task. So some concern for the task exist and equally some concern for people. Leaders adopting this behavioral approach try to address the needs of the task and those of their followers to some extent, but do so without conviction, skill, or insight, which reduces their effectiveness. Leadership generally requires a good degree of authority and decisiveness, so a style that lacks these characteristics has much room for improvement. We also have the produce or perish style, which have low concern for people and high concern for tasks. So um these are also referred to as autocratic. These are the leaders using this style seek to control and dominate others. And lastly, we have the team style that have high concern for people and high concern for task. So this is the ideal behavioral approach for the Blake and Mountain managerial spirit. We also have the topic contingency theory or situational leadership theory. According to the contingency theory, what works for a leader in one situation may not work in another. In 1982, these researchers developed what they term to as situational leadership theory, which uses styles of leadership that align with the task versus people orientation. But the leadership theory holds that a leader's most appropriate action or behavior depends on the situation and on the followers. To an extent, the effectiveness of a leader depends on whether his or her followers accept or reject him, as well as on the extent to which the follower have the ability and willingness to accomplish a specific task. So the key word for here is acceptance and readiness. Next slide. We'll have the figure three of the situational leadership styles. You have directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. So first, we'll talk to directing. The directing or telling leadership style is about task behavior. It involves telling people what they should be doing. So it is a one-way communication. They tell us what to do, how to do it, where to do it, or when to do it. So the giving of direction is followed by closely supervising the performance. We also have the coaching. So it involves directing people, but in a more supportive way. The leader now attempts to hear the suggestions, ideas, and opinions of his or her followers, which translates to a two-way communication. We also have the supporting. So it should have leader should have listened to people. It provides support and encouragement and encourage a We also have the supporting, which involves relationship behavior, which includes listening to people, providing support, and encouraging the efforts of the followers who have the ability and knowledge to do work, facilitating their involvement through problem solving and decision making, passing day to day decisions on tasks to followers who are involved with them. And then last, we have the delegating. Delegating requires minimal direction and support. The leader enables by discussing problems with the followers and coming to agreement on the nature of the problem. The decision making for addressing the problem is handled by the subordinates who run their own show. So that's all. Ending with a quote by John C. Maxwell that says, "A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way." Thank you so much.